I'm Joe, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite cheap panel LED RGB lights, the Vigim VL120 RGB. About a year ago, I was looking around online looking for a small RGB light to just play around in the space. I've used some Quasar 4-foot RGB Rainbow series tubes in my day job. Really like the flexibility that RGB offers and some of the effects that they can offer, but they usually come at a pretty steep price tag, and I was just looking around wondering if there was anything that was fairly inexpensive that I could play with and add to my own personal kit. And I ran across this light. So I picked one up for $40. My expectations were pretty low. That's an extremely cheap light in terms of stuff for video, but I found it to be kind of comparable or a similar space to the Aputure MC. Now, those of you who have MCs or have looked at MCs know that they're usually twice the price of what this light costs. So we'll talk a little bit about why I think that's the case, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why I kind of have come to really love this little light. This is an RGB panel light, meaning it does bicolor in CCT mode. It has RGB and HSI modes, as well as 20 built-in effects. And I mentioned that it was $40. Now granted, the 20 built-in effects are not earth-shattering. Some of them are better than others, but still, to get that many effects built into this light at this price point is pretty amazing. It runs on an internal 3100 milliamp hour battery that you can charge via USB-C, and I don't believe it came with a cable or power brick for that, but you probably have one of those laying around from some of your other equipment. It does have 1/4 20 thread on the bottom of the fixture, so you can mount it to light stands or magic arms or a variety of clamps so that you can rig this thing in all kinds of places, which is why I love it so much. It's super, super light, so it's easy to rig anywhere. It's not magnetic like the MC, but that's something you could probably solve with a quick trip to Harbor Freight and a little bit of glue. As far as controls go, there are 2 dials on the side as well as a power button, and there is a small screen on the back that displays the battery life, where you are as far as in the HSI modes or the RGB or CCT, and it also shows you the intensity. The power button you will hold to turn the fixture on, and the tap of the power button will cycle through those modes. So right now we are in the HSI mode. I can tap out to get effects. So this is one called Fire Engine. I can tap it again to go into the CCT mode. And right now I am at 2500 Kelvin, which is the lowest on the Kelvin scale that this light will dial into. And at a max, you can go all the way up to, I believe, 9000 Kelvin. So you can go from like a really, really warm source to a really, really cool source. And right now this light is at 100%, so it is pretty bright. I mean, this not that you would use it as a key light, but it's providing quite a bit of light. It dims, fully dimmable, all the way down to 1%. I do feel like it dims pretty evenly down to 1%. There's not like a massive jump in intensity when you're dialing that up. Hold the power button down again to turn it off. So now that I have the specs out of the way, I have to say that I think this is an incredible light for the cost. I know, $40, the expectations have to be managed a little bit. There are some shortcomings as far as build quality. It's fully plastic, but the plus side to that is it's only $40. So if you break it on set, it's not the end of the world. Another thing that I think differentiates it and its price point from the MC, and the reason that the MC is the price that it is app control. There's no app control for this thing. You don't have anything like Situs Link where you can dial in the color or adjust any of that from a mobile app, which is a big plus for those kinds of fixtures. They end up rigged in tight places, odd places, places where you can't get larger fixtures. And having app control for a light like that that gets rigged in all these tight places is super useful. That's where something like Situs Link on an Aputure MC comes in and really adds that value. But again, if you're looking to get in the RGB space with a small little light, $40 is very approachable. And we already referenced the last point as to why I think the MC's price point is where it is, and that's the magnetic capabilities of the light, which is super useful. So far, I've really only used this light in my own personal setup. So stuff like this for the YouTube channel, various lighting setups that I'm just playing around and testing on my own time, and I really liked it for a couple uses so far. The effects are really cool. The ones that work well, work well. Some of them, like the police lights and the candle effect, I just feel like they're not quite there. And you can't customize these, they're kind of just baked in, so you get what you get. But again, it's a cheap light. The candle effect I don't love. It doesn't seem to have that gradiated pulsing of the candle light that you would expect in some of the other higher end fixtures with those effects in them. And the police lights, they're okay. We'll take a look at both of these effects here in a second so that you can kind of judge for yourself. I kind of feel like with the police lights and the fire engine lights and those various effects that it has built in, that they're a little bit slow. I feel like when you really see sirens and lights in the real world, they rotate way faster. Those colors cycle way faster. In a pinch, I feel like things like the police lights can work. They sell the idea. You've already seen them in one of my other videos where I review the flashpoint lighting stands. If you haven't seen that one, I'll throw a card up in the corner here so you can go take a look at what that effect looks like there. But real quick, I'm going to dive into the various pieces that I like so far and various setups that I think this thing is super useful. One of those things that I think makes a lot of sense for this light is as a hair light or a scratch light. Hair lights, a lot of times you end up hanging up above talent, or at least higher up to give a little bit of that separation on the hair and shoulders. This light's super light, so if you wanted to hang it from a doorway or a handle or anything, you could throw on a magic arm and a clamp and get this thing rigged almost anywhere. It's battery operated, so you don't have to worry about managing cables. It works awesome for something like that, especially in a situation where it would be harder to rig a larger light. Another area where I think this light is super cool and excels is in like a car shot. If you're doing a nighttime car scene, one thing that always kind of sells that effect is having like a dashboard light. Especially in modern cars, a lot of displays are digital, you get that kind of soft glow that comes up. And this thing is perfect for just throwing up on the dash, having that light bounce in, and really selling that effect of the dash lights on, or maybe the digital display on the radio on, just kind of gently illuminating your subject. And while I did say that there were a few effects in this light that I don't love, there are a few others that I do. And even though they're not customizable, I think in a pinch, or for somebody that doesn't have an RGB light with effects built in, this could be a great solution for it. And one of those effects is the TV effect, where it kind of cuts through the various levels of intensity on the light to emulate seeing what you'd see on TV, those darker scenes and lighter scenes. And the third effect that I like but haven't actually used yet, and I kind of wanted to bring you guys along for the ride with me on that, is the faulty bulb effect. And this is one that I feel like only fits in certain genres or certain kinds of scenes. So I always thought it was interesting that manufacturers of lights like this were baking those effects in, but they are cool. And it is something that gives you a certain feeling when you're watching a scene. So I want to test this out with you guys. I'm going to set up a scene where I'm kind of coming down my stairs into my basement, and we're going to treat it like the light in my stairwell is going bad. And this is maybe a horror scene or some kind of thriller scene, and just building that ambiance up as I come down the steps, and seeing how well that effect works. Looking at it just with the light and kind of watching how it reacts seems like it's promising, but I'll be curious to see what it looks like on camera. We'll cut away to some of those scenes as I'm talking through this, and we'll see what we think. So that's it, guys. This is a short one. I just had to share this because I really thought for the money and for the accessibility, this light is fantastic for anybody looking to play around in that RGB space. It's super handy even for just throwing a little bit of color on the wall, which a lot of YouTube channels and full-on TV productions like to do, to add some of that color contrast, just give it a little bit of interest in the background or highlight a certain area of the frame. A perfect use for a little light like this. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you aren't already, and let me know what you think about topics like this. I've got another light that I use in my day job quite a bit that is the Godox M1, that is a similar pocket style RGB light with a lot of cool baked in effects. It's at a higher price point, but if that's something you're interested in, let me know. I'd love to talk about that one as well. That's it for me. We'll see you on the next one.